Welcome back, listeners, to Learning from Friends. My name is Kay Curtis, your tour guide on this lovely venture that we get to do together every 2 weeks, sometimes every other week, just depending upon the episodes. Today, I'm sitting on my back porch. I've recorded a bunch of different episodes everywhere. It's amazing to get the opportunity to hear ambiances in the background. So maybe you'll hear some of our birds and maybe my cats will rub up on the microphones. You would never know. We'll kind of go. But as you all know, before I go into every episode, I always like to do a quote of the day from my mother. I need to sit down and have her actually read these out rather than me just kind of saying them out week, but we'll get there. Mom, I know you're listening. We're working on it. But the quote of the day is, our prime purpose in this life is to help others. And if you can't help them, at least don't hurt them. Great quote from the Dalai Lama. Always a wonderful thing to kind of sit back and hear little advices. And as a teacher, I always try to go that way. And my guest as well as a teacher today that we're talking to. I am honored to speak with my former brand director that I know she's had a significant impact in my life, my brother's life, my sister's life. And for over a decade, we were involved in the program, and she's seen thousands of students over the years. She's taught brothers, sisters, cousins, just so many. And I know her from Teasley in Cherokee County, where I went to school at. She's helped out with the band program. She did marching band. She did choral director for a little while, and I can't call her by her first name. I just can't do it. I'm one of those, whenever it comes to saying like Pam Mullins, it's weird and awkward to me, so I always call her as Miss Mullins, because that's the way she is to me. So we're going to talk a little bit about her career and peek behind the curtains of what it was like being a band director, choral director, and doing marching band over the years. Miss Mullins, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I was amazed that you called me, and I feel special because of it.
You know, you should be, because you always are special. And
wow.
in the hearts of many, like I had several kind of reach out here and there whenever I said I was going to record this episode. And several people were just like, this is something I'm really looking forward to listen to.
Oh, gosh.
And a lot of people are excited. And it surprises me how it just kind of grows. And I get honored every single time I get to talk to somebody.
Well, yeah, I guess so. I understand that. That's pretty cool.
History, learning about your past and providing out there. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
So we do know each other through band, and you were my 7th grade. And then in 8th grade, you went up to the high school level, and I had you 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. And that was just great experiences. You taught my brother, and I think y'all went to the Cherry Blossom Parade the year he was there in 8th grade.
Oh, in DC. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That was a trip.
That was definitely a trip. And you were able to work with amazing people. Fred Forsch he's
a great guy.
Great guy. I love every
so
time
talented.
Anytime you guys did duets, it was just heartbreaking.
Listen, we were having fun. We didn't care what anybody else thought. We were having fun, and hope the kids were having fun with us.
Oh, we did. And I always loved the 7th grade years, and you would always have the tie contest. Who has the best tie at Christmas?
I forgot about that.
Little joys like that. I just kind of pop up. And this is the thing. Some of these stuff we don't think about until just kind of pops back up and having these conversations. And I hadn't thought about that for years. I remember the exact tie that I wore that night.
Oh, wow.
So my grandmother made it, and we had it was like leopard print, 2 sides. One of it was green, one side was purple, but I remember it. I don't know why. But those little fun joys. Do you have any significant influences of people in your life to help guide you into your music career, or just in general in life to guide you towards education?
Well, yeah, actually, I was born into a family on my mother's side who were extremely musical. My mother's family, the Dunn family, super musically talented. Everybody in the family played some kind of instrument. It wasn't just piano. It was fiddle, which is, violin, fiddle, and banjo, guitar, and organ, piano, all sorts of stuff. And when we would get together, they would bring their instruments, and they would always make sure they were in a place that had a piano and organ too. And we would just start. They would play, and we would all sing. If we could find a hymnal, we'd just grab a hymnal. If not, we'd just make it up. And we're surrounded with music with them. And before my time, the Dunn sisters, my grandmother was in a family of 12 children. And they were all girls except for the last child, who was the only boy.
Oh, my gosh. Being at the tail end.
Yeah, the tail end, yeah. And so during the course of 1930s, maybe into the 1940s, maybe in the early 1950s, there was a rotating set of 4 Dunn, that was the last name Dunn, D-U-N-N, Dunn sisters that actually had a radio program.
Oh, wow.
And sang on the radio and at wherever people sang,
Whatever
stuff
function,
like
yeah.
that, functions like that, with wonderful harmony. A few years ago, I mean, I had always wanted to hear a recording of it, and I never have. I even consulted because I knew they had been recording somewhere because they had a live radio show.
Yeah.
But I contacted the Library of Congress. They did not have any recordings of it.
Oh, my word.
And they said that because it was the local radio stations that it was broadcast to, which is in and around Gadsden, Alabama, in the Etowah County area, that they were probably the property of those particular radio stations who are now defunct. And so somebody either took them home or tossed them. And I hated that because none of us in our generation ever got a chance to hear the Dunn sisters singing like they did on the radio program. But I always heard about it, And then when we got to family reunions, you could hear some of them. You knew just from hearing at that particular point what they probably would have sounded like when they were younger and doing that all the time, which was phenomenal. And so I grew up listening to all that kind of stuff. And so not learning how to play the piano was not in the car.
Not out of question.
You had to learn how to play. So I finally started taking lessons in 2nd grade. My mother was a phenomenal pianist and organist. And she took from some music professor in the Gadsden area who was renowned in that area. And Mama was extremely talented, but my mother's parents were extremely poor, dirt poor. And I think they rented all of their lives, and they never learned how to drive a car. I mean, they were that generation.
Self-sufficient and making sure that the pride in getting by.
Yeah. And so Mama wanted to study to be a concert pianist. She was that good.
Oh, my gosh.
But it cost money and a lot of it, and they didn't have it. And the only way that Mama could go to college was to be a nurse, because the nursing school actually paid the nurses.
Oh, yeah, because they wanted to be able to make sure that
because
they
wanted
had people coming out.
They wanted nurses that badly. It was the early 1950s. So they would pay the student nurses to come to become a nurse.
Which is really fortunate. Yeah.
Which is, yes. And Mama was, oh my gosh, she was a top-notch nurse. And so that became her profession, and she just let her music lapse into pleasurable thing, that kind of thing. But she continued to play. She'd do, I know, all the time when I was growing up, she would play for weddings. And I guess she'd play for some funerals. That's basically what you did back then.
In the areas,
in the area, that kind of thing. But we always had a piano. Even if we didn't have anything else growing up, we had a piano, And then when we had enough money, we got an organ too. So we always had a piano and organ. So I started taking lessons when I was in 2nd grade. And I took until I was probably in junior high school. I was never a great pianist, but I can sit down and play. I don't want anybody necessarily to hear me.
But you understood the theory, and you knew the theory.
But because I could play not just with my one finger, but with both hands, and pull out a hymnal and play, that kind of thing. So I could play 4-part harmony. So I was introduced on the notes on the page. There's too many musicians out there nowadays that are extremely successful, but they can't read music. Paul McCartney can't read music.
Yeah, that was very surprising. I read that when I was young.
That was crazy wild, isn't it? You would think, like, wait, what? At least by now, by osmosis, you'd know.
But maybe you just set in the ways and go,
maybe so. I don't know. But I was fortunate that I was introduced, at a fairly early age to do that. Because of that, it made me continue with the love that my mother's family had for music, starting with and going to this next generation. And all my cousins, they're all, every single one of them, play a whole lot better than I do. One of them, I think she and her husband did a lot of stuff in Nashville music scene. I had another cousin, he was a music producer in Nashville for a long time.
Wow.
So, I mean, they did a lot. All his first cousins did, things with music. It's just the way it was.
Yeah, that's what you know, and that's what you're good at. You find ways to use your abilities.
Yeah. Coupled with that, I always I was blessed with a really good singing voice. And even when I was a little kid, a really, really little kid, when I was like 4 or 5, so much so that my grandmother, my mother's mother, I'm very close to her, when she had a hysterectomy, back then the children were not allowed to go up to the ward to visit anybody. You had to be over 12.
Okay.
And so she missed seeing me so badly and wanted me to sing for her. So they brought her down to the lobby for Pam to sing for her, that kind of thing. And then when I was in elementary school, I got in a couple of contests to where I was actually on the local TV show singing.
That's a huge honor.
It was crazy fun, But that was up until second grade. And then in the middle of second grade, we moved from Gadsden to Albany, Georgia, from northern Alabama to South Georgia.
Being in second grade and moving, that's your entire life just shifts.
It was crazy different, yeah. So there were no friends. My dad got transferred, that's just the way it was back then. Yeah. So anyway, and so the only thing I had left for that was piano lessons. And just singing. I actually started singing in class, and then the teacher would say, "Pam, we have a few minutes at the end of class today. Why don't you stand up and sing for us?"
Gosh.
I was like, okay.
That's amazing.
In fact, when I came, one of my class reunions about 10 years ago, we finally had a significant class reunion where a lot of my classmates actually attended. They actually remembered that, and I was actually really embarrassed because I felt like, this ridiculous little kid was up here singing and that kind of thing. But the fact that they remembered,
you made an impact. Yeah, it's just a memory.
I was shocked. No, we didn't think it was stupid. We loved it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, I didn't know that. Okay.
And you never can tell when those little moments go with you for a long time.
Yeah, I was like, well, I had no idea. Okay. When it came time to decide, this is 7th grade, decide whether you could be in band or chorus, I immediately wanted to be in chorus because all I had done was sing, basically, and play the piano. You had the
knowledge and you had the stuff
Yeah. But my next door neighbor was a member of the high school band. She was the head majorette, and she played clarinet. And before I even got the papers, permission papers to fill out and all that kind of stuff to get into chorus in junior high school, suddenly Pam was signed up for band. And not only was she signed up for band, she was playing clarinet. Yeah. And back then, you didn't question your parents. If they said that's what you were going to do, you went, "Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Okay." And inside, I'm going like, "No."
But they knew what was best.
Yeah. I wanted to sing. But I was in the band. And then I fell in love with it. I had a great band director who I had. We had a beginning band in 7th grade, and then we had a separate junior high that was 8 and 9, and he went to that school as we went in to that age group. And then after I finished 9th grade, he went to the next high school, so I followed him.
That sounds familiar.
So it does. That is kind of weird, isn't it? But anyway, he was of the teachers. He was my influence, my band director. His name was Blun Bell, B-L-U-N, Blun Bell. His family was immigrants from Sweden, evidently, because Blun is a Swedish name. Didn't know that. I learned that through him. But anyway, he was just a great influence. Opened doors for the way you felt when you sat in a band ensemble, and played, and you were part of that incredible high of playing a piece of music, and you realize that it's magic.
Yep. Music is a universal language.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. You could feel it from your toes all the way up, the hairs on your arms, the hairs on your neck standing up, realizing this is like a once in a lifetime feeling, And then I saw, and we were playing, but you could see the look on his face of pure. He was right there with us, except he wasn't playing the instrument. He was conducting it. And I thought, one day I want to do that too. I want to be able to feel I see the look on his face, and be able to feel that, because it was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful. I excelled in my clarinet, but I practiced all the time.
You have to. in order
I
to
practiced
succeed?
all the time. I would get ready early for school and put my clarinet together and practice, And when I finished my homework after I got home, I usually practiced an hour a day because I wanted to get better. I wanted to get better.
And you'd already had those examples in front of you with your family that was playing music all the time.
Yeah,
too.
yeah, they were. Yeah, when I first got my clarinet, I figured out how to put it together and how to make a sound. And before we learned anything in band, I had picked out. Well, everybody knows who the Beatles are. And at that point, the song Yesterday was very
beautiful
popular.
song.
I picked it out on my clarinet so I could play it. That and another song called Do the Freddy. Anyway, it was another popular song at that point on the radio, rock and roll songs. I just picked them out, so I was trying to, like you'd pick out something on the piano, because I wanted to be able to make a sound and make a song on my horn, on my instrument. And so those were the two first things I learned how to play. I never did see any place if they weren't written down, I was just messing around trying to figure what they were. So that was fun. And then being able to play in a real ensemble with real music printed on the page, and then, all the different wonderful harmonies. And then you put the percussion back there. I was like, oh my gosh,
You're in
I'm in
heaven.
heaven.
Yeah.
I'm in heaven. Yeah. Yeah. It was just a wonderful experience. And looking back, when I finally got on the other side of this ensemble and began being the person on the podium, I wanted my band kids to have that same experience I had. I wanted them to feel like they were part of something great, part of something really good, really positive, like a family, a positive family.
Oh my gosh, a band is family.
It has to be.
It really is.
And you have a camaraderie. You have people that will stick up for you if you get in a tight.
Needed a ride home. You always had a ride home.
Always had a ride home.
If you were late, not late, but if you had your parent didn't make it, they would sit with you and wait. You had an extra phone. Here's a phone to be able to call.
Yeah, it was all good. When I started teaching, I knew that there would be kids. Let's face it, most kids don't go play in Carnegie Hall. I mean, most kids that you teach in band are not going to be professional musicians. However, they will all benefit from being in a group that's a positive experience.
Yeah, the life skills are
and they may at one point remember how to read music and how to make a sound on their instrument, that kind of stuff. And just remember that it was a good experience, good times and good memories, not something that they would like to sweep under the carpet or, something like that. I didn't want anybody to feel that way. I wanted them to always feel good about how they experienced. Whether they were the first chair player or the last chair player. It didn't matter.
Yeah, I always stuck with last chair. It was easier that way. That was
I was last chair in college. Yeah. It was okay. I was okay by that.
Exactly.
I didn't care.
I went in, sounds terrible about myself on this one. I would go into scale test and just bomb it just to be last chair.
Oh, man.
After elementary school, I did that. I enjoyed being last chair.
But you won't. In reality, you want somebody that's strong playing just as good in the bottom as you are at the top.
Yeah.
You got to have strong in all the parts. So
you were always trying to find a way to spin it. You could just say, "Hey, you were lazy," but no, you always trying to spin it, make me feel better. That's the teacher in you. But okay, you said clarinet, you said piano. What other instruments do you know how to play?
Well, when you go to college and declare that you're a music major, you have to learn how to play them all. But not where you can play it in a concert, but you have to take what's called method classes, like brass method classes. So my brass method classes, I had to play trumpet and trombone and baritone and tuba and French horn. And of those, I fell in love with baritone, euphonium. Oh my gosh, I loved playing that. So when I do Tuba Christmas, I take a baritone and play it on Tuba Christmas. It was just fun. And then we have woodwind methods, flute, clarinet, oboe, bassoon, saxophone. I really enjoyed learning how to play bassoon. That was fun. It was different.
Yeah, I mean, I remember seeing Billy trying to figure it out and playing it, and then Jessica Martinez sitting there playing, and it was just like, that's hard.
It's
the
different.
wind circulation is so different.
It is, and the fact that your mouthpiece is just your reed.
Itty bitty tiny. little reed for this big old instrument that's taller than you are.
I know, yeah. But I liked the bassoon so much that I took extra lessons from the band director in college just so I could learn more about it. I just enjoyed playing it, and it just was fascinating to me, just different. Then had to learn the string methods, violin and viola and cello. I didn't play the double bass, but I fell in love with the viola. And you know, from your wife, or she may or may not have told you that viola is in a different clef.
Oh yeah, it's a totally different. Yeah.
Yes, that C clef. That
and that's why she always has offers to come and play places because not many people can play viola.
Right. So it's fun. It's like an interpretation of a new language. You know, writing a new language. But you know, it's cool to be able to, and nobody realizes how neat it is except the other people that are around you going, "Oh, you're playing that clef. That's cool.
That's weird. That's interesting.
Oh, look at that." You know? But I liked viola because it wasn't way up here with the violins, and it wasn't too far down with the cello. Yeah. I loved the sound of it. It just had a lovely, rich sound, you know. So I enjoyed the viola very, very much. On a side note, in string methods, well, all the method classes, you checked out an instrument for X number of weeks to learn how to play it that the college owned, so you wouldn't have to buy one. You know,
that's a relief.
You know, yeah. So we'd take them home. By that time, I was married. The brass methods playing at home wasn't too bad, but the string stuff, there's nothing worse than hearing somebody trying to learn how to play violin. Oh my gosh, it's like a room full of rocking chairs with cats getting their tails rocked on and squalling. Oh my gosh, it's just screechy, awful, until you learn how to get a decent sound out of it. And my husband still remembers me playing this little ditty called Dancing Sunbeams, which was awful, and I sounded just hideous. And every time he thought I was going to have to whip out my violin so I could practice, so I could get a good grade and learn how to play it, he went outside.
Yeah, I got to go on an errand real
I got to
quick.
go somewhere other than here.
I had to go outside and practice in the field when I was learning to play saxophone. Mom and Dad was like, go to the field, go out there and play.
Yes. So it was like that.
That's with any instrument. You got to get through those phases. And
oh, yeah.
I think they say it takes the first 100 hours is when people quit. If you make it past the first 100, then after that, it's amazing. Then I think they say at 10,000 hours is when you move from beginner to novice in that different stage. No, sorry, you move from novice to advanced because of you spent those 10,000 hours.
I believe it. Yeah. I felt when I was top beginning band, you know, you could see the faces of the kiddos. Some of them got it right then, you know, and some of them would get it about a week later, and some of them it would take a long time to get it. And you could see the disappointment on their face. But I kept telling them, in my mind, there's something called a click factor.
Yes.
You know, when something clicks. Well, some kids' click factor is right here. It's very close to the beginning. Others, it's going to be a couple of weeks down the road, and it clicks. Some almost a whole year till it finally clicks.
Yeah, you know? I was a late bloomer on getting into
But if you persevere, if you don't give up and realize your click factor is going to come,
just a matter.
Then you just have to understand it's just going to take a little longer, a little bit more work. But you know, if they would trust me on that, a lot of the kids did trust me on that, but some of them just no, you know.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing I wanted them to do was to give it a chance, and if it still wasn't for them, then
go on to your next
just
thing.
Just try. That's one of the reasons when we signed up kids for band at Teasley, we had them sign a little thing that they weren't going to drop until for the first
quarter or whatever it is,
like
first
that.
9 weeks or something,
so they can feel what it was like. Yeah, I think it was first semester, so they get through the Christmas the Christmas concert, because that's what you're aiming for. You know, as a band kid, you're aiming for your performance, you know, basically. And so you wanted them to understand what all this practicing and learning all these fingers and the different holes and all that kind of stuff and where your click factor is. And suddenly you're at this concert and people are just going, yay, woo, I love it, it's terrific.
Feeling,
and that applause is all for you and all the stuff that you have learned.
Yeah.
and the music that you're making for them to enjoy, and it's from all your hard work. Look what you have accomplished.
Yeah, in 6 months, look where you've come
That's
from.
exactly
not being
right.
able to play to that.
And if they don't give them at least that much of a chance, they had sold themselves short. Yeah. And if after that, they didn't like it, or this is just not for me. Well, thank you. You have tried it.
And that goes the longest way.
Yeah. And in
that's
my
a good
mind,
life skill to have.
yes, it
stick
is.
It out.
Yes, it is. To not be a quitter and to try something till it's just not going to work for you, that kind of stuff. But you also, when you do stuff like that, you have a healthy respect for those that keep on going and do really well.
Which creates that camaraderie that there whenever the other people around you.
Oh, of course, of course.
Because a lot of people that do click, will want to be able to help you. Tim Griffin helped me out a lot.
Oh, heaven's sakes. And they're so excited and proud to be able to do that. That's one of the reasons why I would have some of my former students that I knew were good players come and help the younger students at Teasley, the kids that were at the high school level by that time. They loved helping the younger students because they had such enthusiasm for their horn, whatever it might be.
For their craft, whatever that was.
Absolutely.
That is entirely true. To be able to have that accomplishment, share it with others, and that's why I teach as well. That's the reason why I got to teach.
There you go.
But it's, as you said, with that click moment, the reason I always tell every student that my favorite moment is seeing that aha moment in your brain, because you can see it.
Yeah.
When it clicks, you're just like, oh my gosh. And that to me is
that what it's all about?
Amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, really. Mm-hmm. And it's not just music, it's whatever.
Yep. Any given point to it. And
exactly
if you have
right.
that skill to be able to use it, do it. Whether it's in the classroom, whether it's at your community, just being able to give yourself. That's the biggest gift we have is time. It's limited, and whenever you're giving somebody that time, that's a resource you can't get back. You can make all the money in the world, you can do all that, but it's giving somebody your time is the longest way. Is the biggest gift, in my opinion, they can give somebody.
That's exactly right. Because once it's spent, you can't bring it back.
Nope, you can't bring it back. And you never know what's going to happen at any point. It's unpredictable.
Yeah. Do you remember what I used to tell everybody about when you've done this, you can't retrieve it? I said it was GWTW. Do you remember what that was?
It doesn't click right now. Refresh my memory.
Gone with the wind. It's gone with the wind. You can't retrieve it. You can make it better when you do it again, but you can't retrieve it.
Yeah, for some odd reason, it doesn't click. But there are a lot of things in my life that's just gone, just in 1 year, and it's there for a little while. Now, I know you are a big music person. What are some of your favorite musicians that influenced you over the years in general that you loved listening to and still to this day?
Well, the Beatles were just a huge influence on me. And I still follow Paul McCartney. He's just prolific.
Didn't he just turn 80 this
weekend?
Yeah.
Yeah. 80. Yeah, still rocking at 80. I would like to say that for me and beyond someday. McCartney, and just because of just being exposed to all different kinds of music, I love songs. I love with wonderful harmony. There is a rock guy, and he's since deceased, British guy, Jerry Rafferty. Man, he had some good stuff going for him. A lot of the rock stuff that came around I didn't feel like was as thought out as I'd like for it to be. A lot of harmonies were missing. It just was something everybody just wanted to make a buck, I guess. But the first time I listened to Jerry Rafferty, it was like wonderful harmonies. I can hear counterpoint, which is like two different melodies running at the same time.
Yes.
I thought he was great. And then looking into other folks, I actually love George M. Cohan.
Oh, yes.
And I love, oh my gosh, Henry Mancini. Oh, whoa. The guy who did Pink Panther, Henry Mancini.
Yes.
Yeah.
As you said Pink Panther, it clicked back in my head of him. Okay. My wife loves him.
He was terrific. And he just, I have a couple of CDs of just his greatest works, if you call it like that. It's phenomenal. He wrote mostly for TV and movies themes, but other stuff as well. And just everything was wonderful. The harmonies, the melodies were beautiful. And when I read up about him, I liked him even more because he was a flute player when he was growing up. I think he went to All-State Band on flute. It's like, okay, now I know.
Now there's a connection.
Now I know why you're so good. And when he collaborated with Mercer, Johnny Mercer, who was from Savannah.
Yes.
Johnny Mercer wrote a lot of wonderful popular music attributed to American songbook, American pop songbook. Johnny Mercer had clever lyrics to go with cool and groovy melodies. It's just, I'm a sucker for clever lyrics. And so Johnny Mercer's got extremely clever lyrics. Who else? Oh my gosh, there was somebody else that popped into my mind just then, and then it's like, boom, gone again.
My brain went to, in high school, I remember people would always ask you, what's your favorite song? And you would say, oh my gosh, it's Daydream. Dreamweaver. You'd always, Dreamweaver. But yeah, I don't know if that's still there, but I remember that you would always just play, that would be the song you would throw out, Dreamweaver. And everybody would be like, what?
It's been a long time since I listened to Dreamweaver.
It's one of those weird memories that just kind of pops in my head.
I guess, I don't know. I was trying to think now. Who else? I don't know.
There's so much music out there. It's hard to really pinpoint
I love
things
to hear
down.
gospel music. I guess that's because I grew up hearing that with my mother's family, and them doing that kind of stuff on family reunions. And when I got old enough to be able to pick up a hymnal and try to read it and sing with them, that was fun. I always have the deepest respect for anybody that's good at what they do, and keeps at it.
Never give up on your gift, and that's what I love. Whenever a musician says, "I'm retiring, I'm done for music," and then they never are. They go behind the scenes and they continue to go. They'll never walk away.
Yeah. Oh, I know John Williams. Oh my gosh. And all his music that has come to the forefront, and now I guess he's at the Pops, Boston Pops. He directs the Boston Pops now, I guess. But anyway, he did Raiders of the Lost Ark and all that kind of stuff. Just super prolific.
They don't get all their credit that they deserve when it comes to that.
Oh my gosh,
anybody in TV and movies, they don't.
It's just, and he's got phenomenal stuff out there, and it's just. It just makes your jaw drop at how everything that he does is good. It sounds good.
Being able to put all that music together of all the instruments and getting all the harmonies and separating things out, it blows my mind seeing composers just piece things together.
Yeah, and can you imagine, always phenomenal, but then I always think about Beethoven, and he did it when he was deaf a lot of the times, and I just can't.
How?
I just can't.
It was in his head, and that's when he would just be cut down the saw and sit there and put his head against the floor and listen to it, but it's still.
I know, it's crazy, yeah. The times I've had to, when we were in college and we were charged with the task of having to write an 8-measure original anything.
Oh, my.
And I was at the piano for hours trying to figure out what was original, because a lot of the times it's not. It's like, no, that's part of Happy Birthday. No, that's part of Mary Had a Little. No, it's hard.
Yeah,
to come up with something original, and those people that do that day in and day out, like McCartney and others as well.
Oh yeah, entirely. But that's the great reference back.
To be able to do something and it's not somebody else's, it's totally your work. Wow.
So, beyond.
It's crazy good.
But that's the point of why they're a musician. They're being given that gift.
Yeah, they are.
And they're using it. And that's, even though they always say the starving artist, sometimes they are literally starving to it until they get that break. And sometimes when they're back off, they've got to do it. They have to. The music's within them.
Yeah.
They've got to.
Yeah. I can't do that. It's just this crazy. I admire anybody that can do something like that. That's just out of my realm of being able to be original.
Yeah. I want to jump backwards a little bit with people always have misconceptions and ideas that they think is what your job is and what you do for a living. Can you give us some key misconceptions that people you think have about being a band director, and do you have a response to these?
Oh, yeah. I always felt like people thought we were just having a party back there in the band room, that we never really did anything. It was just a big party.
We did have some good fun times and just hung out and did stuff.
But because we couldn't have a party all the time and not go out in public and actually play music that people actually recognize.
That is a very true statement. And you did a very good job of juggling between those of you would let us cut loose for about 5-10 minutes of class coming in and just walk around. And then before band practice, you would know when your time was to start. And you always had the band room open for us a little early from school. So we can just kind of come in and hang out. And that was the atmosphere you had to build.
Yeah, that's part of family time.
Yep, exactly.
That's part of family time. Yeah, and if you have, there's also that suffer factor.
True.
If you're having to work on a part and you're suffering together, that kind of stuff, and in band camp, that's that suffer factor.
In the
all
heat.
Suffering together.
The heat.
So it's like I'm bonded together because we have sweat together many times.
Sometimes blood from falling and tripping on something, running into the other musician with the horn.
You never know.
Yeah, you never
know.
can tell. Hit the mark to make sure that you're not running to the other one. Yeah, you were blood, sweat, and tears. Like with that, it literally is.
There you go. But yeah, I think Fred and I discussed this many a time. That because when I was at Teasley, he was a choral director and I was the band director, so we were the music department. So we call each other partners in crime.
Because y'all were.
But we just had the best. We were just making sure the kids came along with our Pied Piper stuff. We just really enjoyed it that much. But we always felt like people thought that what we did was insignificant, and they probably didn't. Maybe they didn't think that, but we sometimes
could feel it.
Yeah. That well, you're not doing math down there. This is not the science class.
It is math. It is a
you're
science.
Not learning your English vocabulary there. Well, but you are learning a lot, and you are doing some math skills, and you're doing. No matter when you learn, you're working at it.
Yep.
You're working at it. It is a discipline. That even if you don't become a professional musician, you learn how to discipline yourself to learn something new.
Yeah, and it's the science of getting all the music together when you get to it. It is a foreign language to be able to read,
That's
to be able to
right.
put it into place. And there is the life skill of as it's communicating with each other and being able to work as a whole. And there's just so much to it.
Oh, yeah. When I decided for when I was in junior high school, that's what I was going to do. I was going to college and major in music. And then when I got into band and realized how much I enjoyed that, the more I got into it, the more I realized this is what I want to do for a living. And when I graduated from high school and I was in college, I came back, how college kids come back and they go visit their teacher, that kind of stuff. And I went back to visit my favorite homeroom teacher in junior high school. And she wanted to know what I was majoring in. And I told her, and I was so disappointed in her because she said, "Oh, Pam, I thought you would do so much more in your life than teach music."
What?
And that just floored me. And I thought, why did you, first of all, you could think it all you want.
Yeah, don't say it out loud.
Don't say that to me. This is what I wish to do with my life. And it is constructive. I'm not out there selling dope and, gambling, and I'm learning to do all that. It's a fruitful thing.
And it's not about the money.
It's a good thing. And I really feel like I'm fairly good at it. I didn't say all that, but I was just crestfallen.
Yeah, because you were being honorable in the sense of not trashing your name too by coming down to her level. Yeah.
She was a civics teacher. I just thought the world of her. But when she said that, I thought, wait a minute. And then now look back and think, well, she thinks all we do is party down in the band room.
Unfortunately.
That's not it at all.
No.
Who do you think when you turn on the radio, do you listen to somebody expound civics or how to do a math equation? No, you're listening to music. Some professional musician is out there beating the streets doing that kind of stuff,
Yeah. And it's 1 in a million get that kick to be able to have that radio play or something like that. And
you pay a ticket to go hear the orchestra. You don't think the orchestra just picked up all their instruments two hours ago and sat down on that. No, somebody taught them how to do all that.
And there's been people that have been doing it for 30, 40, 60 years. I can't remember the name of the bass player that literally died on stage for the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra.
Yeah.
And she just literally, I think the day or 2 days before, broke the record for the longest playing musician in an orchestra. I think that's,
And when she said that just, how much that hurt me, I vowed then that no matter if I asked somebody, what are you doing now that you're out of school, that kind of stuff, and they told me whatever it was, I was going to be happy for them because they had chosen it.
They had gone their path, and everyone's path is different.
Everyone's path is different. I can still see myself standing there and listening to her tell me that. Oh, Pam, I thought you'd do so much more with your life. It's like, great,
Come on.
whatever.
I always tell my students in class, it goes, I don't care if you make 100, you make a 70, you make a 60 on your test, you make a 50. As long as you did your best and you put in the effort.
There you go.
And that's what matters the most. And not everyone has to go to college. You can go to a technical program. You can join a trade union. You can go apprenticeships. As long as you're happy, the mighty dollar doesn't have to be your end goal.
And Lord have mercy, as a music teacher, it is not the almighty dollar. And if a teacher at all, it's not the almighty dollar.
It's not.
You have to want. You have to have a passion. You have to want to do it. You need a love for it. You need to be driven that way because the dollar is not going to drive you.
Nope.
It is not.
It is not. And we all have our difficult students that we see in class, and we have our favorite students.
Yeah.
How did you deal with some of those difficult students at times? Because I never remember you calling out a student in class. You always would call them into your office, talk for a little while, or you would pull them off to the side, which is a big sign of respect for that. What was your approach to dealing with a difficult student? I'm writing down notes here for this one.
Well, I will tell you this, that I was lucky as the band director, way luckier than somebody who had a class full of, who was an English teacher and had a class full of students, because my band students chose to be there.
Yeah.
You can't choose to be in that English class because you have to take English. You have to have that credit.
In order to graduate. Yeah.
But you chose to be in band. You chose to be here. Do you not still want to remain here? You're walking on thin ice.
Having a bigger classroom size is challenging. How did you address, instead of having 25 students, you had like 40, 50 in a classroom at a time?
Well, first of all, back then, the limit for academic teachers were like, I don't know, 28, 32, 30, I don't know what it was. But anyway, if you actually dug and looked at how much it was for a band director, it'd be like 90.
Yeah, a lot. It was crazy.
In one class, yeah. So you just knew that's just what it was going to be. But, you'd be surprised the peer pressure.
That's very
true.
For
the kids, the one or two kids that would try to act out, the peer pressure a lot of times would stop them from doing that before I ever got involved. And, I would have, at Teasley, you may not remember, but I would have some silly little punishments for somebody. My pet peeve was throwing something at the trash can but not making a trash can.
Yeah. So
if you threw something into the trash can and made it, great. But if you missed the trash can, you owe me 5 push-ups.
I need to write that one down because I have that in my classroom right now this year. Again, note taking.
And if you misbehave, sometimes I assigned push-ups and you'd have to do them. Nope, I would be the only one seeing you because you would do it. Where the band room door was in Teasley.
Oh yeah.
So that was behind the band formation, right, and behind percussion. So they'd do it right there, and I knew they did push-ups in PE, so I knew it wasn't out of the realm of what they could do. But I was a little nervous about it. And one time I guess it was 2 or 3 kids. It's always the boys that were pushing me. I guess had 3 kids in the back doing push-ups. It was some little infraction. It doesn't make a bit of difference what it was now. But anyway, I see the assistant principal at the door, and I'm thinking, oh, man, I'm in deep trouble now because he's going to look at this and go, Mrs. Mullins, come here, and that kind of stuff.
You're not the PE teacher.
Well,
what are you doing?
But the funny thing is, and Mr. Jenkins, great guy to work with, he opened up the door, and he had to step over the kids that were doing the push-ups. It came and asked me about something up at the podium. Walked back out, stepped over the kids doing the push-ups, walked out, and he never said a word about them. Never. And after that, I realized, okay, I'll be okay doing the punishment thing with the push-ups.
Not called into the office.
I'm all good because I was living on the edge the rest of the day thinking, oh, he's going to call me to the office and go, Ms. Mullins, that's not what you need to do. But not a word.
Yeah, because not over the top or anything crazy
No, it
for it.
wasn't. And usually it's just 3 or 5 of them. It's not anything big, but they were pumping up and down, doing their push-ups.
Okay, yeah, let it kind of go.
Yeah, a few times I had a couple of kids that just like to talk a lot in beginning band, and I would make them. One kid, I couldn't get him to hush. I don't know why. So, and he was a funny kid, and you hated to squelch him too much, and he was pretty good at what he did, but he just needed to be quiet or more, more quiet. So I would have him bring his chair and sit next to the podium and still play. But he was with us, but he wasn't with everybody else around him. He was in his chair next to the podium. So I did that. He wasn't quite isolated,
You're still a part of the group. You're still
part of
there.
the group, still did his stuff, but he just wasn't next to his buddy.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
Definitely goes a long way at times.
Yeah. I really didn't have that many much discipline problems. The one kid that ever challenged me at the high school level, I think I wound up having to call home. And that I probably called home, all in one hand, counted all in one hand. I just never had to do that. And so, but he was, I think he was deeply he had problems other than just band.
Yeah, had a lot going on.
And so finally I think he wound up having to withdraw from school totally.
That's unfortunate.
But it was just, it wasn't just band, it was lots of other stuff, so. But yeah, he was probably my only one that I couldn't feel like he could assimilate back into the group. He just had other issues, But there are people out there like that, and if it's not for them, then they need to take care of the issues at hand before they do other stuff.
That's true, and that's a hard thing within school of finding that balance to give them the opportunity to, and you want them to be there. Yeah. But it's hard and it hurts.
I gave him lots of warning, and I think it was a Monday night marching practice when I had enough. So.
How many years did you wind up teaching on a whole?
It was under 20. I started late in life because when I first got out of college, I couldn't find a job. I put applications in the 5 surrounding counties in Atlanta, and I got one interview, a complimentary interview from DeKalb County because I student taught in DeKalb County.
The connection.
Yeah, because, unlike English teachers or math teachers or science teachers, there was usually only one band director at a school. There are more than one math teacher, more than one English teachers, whatever, and more than one PE teachers, that kind of stuff.
And those people hold on to those jobs.
and
for as long
the
as they
band
can.
director especially holds on to a job. They usually stay there for a long time, and so nobody was budging. And so Paul and I decided to start our family. So I was out of it I didn't even get my teaching certificate because I couldn't find a job. And so we started our family, had our girls, and then I started teaching piano at home. And then we got into a church where I began to sing in the choir there, and eventually became the interim minister of music there twice, and then they gave it to me permanently. So I was there for about 8 years. It was back in the day. I was kind of opening up a can of worms. Because I'm female, there were a lot of things back then that were not really open to females. It was kind of a male-dominated world.
Which is unfortunate.
Yes, it is. And that's, part of the equal rights is for that kind of stuff back in the 60s. But it didn't touch every place. So, but the pastor that was at the church where I became the minister of music, he didn't care. He knew that if you did your job, you needed to be able to do it. I mean, it didn't matter if you were male or female,
Yes.
If you could do the job, then do it, And he was very happy with my job. And the fact that I did huge Christmas and Easter cantatas I'd hire musicians and direct them, I had a huge choir, huge orchestra, directing all that, and we would have 3 nights running. That kind of stuff. Kind of like, it was a big deal, a very, very, very big deal. And so the music department grew and even acquired a set of handbells, and I learned how to play and direct handbells. So I got all that under my belt. And then the minister, I don't know if you know how Baptist churches work, but the minister gets called to a different job, and they and so they go to a different church.
And you have a new minister that's coming in.
Okay, well, the new minister didn't want a woman on the podium.
Wow.
In order for him to come, the woman had to leave.
Oh, my word. Oh, even though you've been there that long and had done
I was
all that
devastated.
Work.
And what really upset me was that instead of the church, very few people knew what was going on. The search committee knew, the people that was calling this the new pastor, and just probably their families knew, but they were very closed-mouthed about it. And they asked me to meet them one Sunday right after the worship service, and so I did. I had no idea what was coming, and so Paul came in with me. My mother and dad took my girls home, so they wouldn't have to stay after church. And the head of the deacons sat down and told me what was going on, that I had to vacate my job.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
Why? Not because I was doing a bad job, but because the person that was coming in didn't want a woman there. I just couldn't believe what I was hearing. And I can remember one of the little girls in the congregation, not too long before that, she came up to me and said something like, "Miss Pam, I love what you do. When I grow up, I want to do this too."
Oh, my word.
And I told
amazing.
her I love it, and I would only leave if somebody ran me off. But I was kidding.
And
here it is happening. Here it is happening. And all I could think of was, first of all, I didn't want a huge controversy at the church. They didn't need to have. I'm not that important. That's not it, in church life. But I didn't want the church to argue about it, and I didn't want it to get out so it'd be argued about, because they just didn't need that. But I was worried about what I was telling my children, because my children were daughters. They were girls.
You didn't want them to be on that same kind of situation. That worry.
And finally I came to the conclusion, it was a hard time for me. I came to the conclusion that, well, we are putting our trust in God. We're not putting our trust in our fellow man, because our fellow man, we are all human, including these people around us, and we have faults. But God's going to give us something else to do. It's just not going to be here.
Yeah, not right now. Yeah.
And so when I left there, and that was when Shannon she was finishing up her 8th grade year at Teasley, and that was when Fred was having to do band and chorus at Teasley.
For any teacher having to do too, that's so hard.
But I knew Fred only because I had volunteered to be the treasurer for the band boosters.
Oh, man.
And I gave him some tickets to one of my cantatas at that church, so he came and listened to. And he found out that I don't know how he found out I was leaving this church. And he called me and told me if I was might be interested in that they were going to separate the band and the choral program at Teasley. Was I interested in maybe even interviewing for it? And I said, my mind is all foggy right now because this has just happened. This mess has just happened, and I was like, I was an emotional wreck. Yeah. I was an emotional wreck, that kind of stuff. And I had already been turned down for the band director job at E.T. Booth, and they hired somebody else. And so did some praying about it, and I decided I was going to take, the minister I told you that hired me because he didn't care if it was a man or a woman.
Yes.
I took his name and phone number, and I marched my little red wagon up to Teasley and asked to see Randy Martin. I wanted to chat with him about the possibility of the band director job. And Randy let me in and talked to me, and I gave him the former pastor's phone number. I said, "Here's somebody that will tell you that I'm a hard worker."
A reference, yep. Yeah,
and I know you don't have my resume or anything in front of me. I have, and Fred can tell you that I am a musician, that kind of stuff. Anyway, it wasn't long after that suddenly it was like steamrolled down. I mean, just like, wait, what? Oh. Not only did I have the job, but I was also going to be ready for this, the assistant in marching season for the high school. That's like, wait, what?
You're just adding something more?
What? Wait, what? And
Oh,
I
word.
didn't even have a teaching certificate. Remember I told you that I didn't get my
you
teaching
hadn't
certificate.
done. Yeah.
So I got a provisional certificate. I had to hurry and get a provisional certificate. And then I had to, in the course of the first year, sign an affidavit or something saying that I would take these two courses that I had to take, whatever it is, I don't remember what it was. And also, I had to get my teaching certificate. I had to pass my, what did they call it back then? National Teachers Exam. I forget, something like that. My gosh, I had not taken a music exam. Let's see, I graduated in August of 75 from Georgia State, immediately started our family. And this is like May of 1989 or 1990. I've been out of school for that long, except for reading scores when I was doing cantata and stuff like that, and playing at the piano every now and again. That was it. I hadn't taken a music test since, it's like,
wow.
That kind of stuff. And I remember I told Paul, I said, I've got to take this test. And I was so thankful it was just pass-fail. It wasn't like how much you had
to make an 80. You had to make it 70.
It doesn't matter. Just give me a pass or fail. That's all they wanted to know. So I said, he said, I totally understand because we were a family. We were going through this together. So if you remember my house, I have a music room.
Yes.
Okay. So I closed the door in the music room, sat on the floor, took out all the textbooks that I could find that I still had, put them all over the floor, and got out.
That's a teacher's life, to spread everything out. And
my
just walk
cassette
around.
tape player, which back then, a cassette tape player. I had a lot of classical music I knew they were going to ask questions about and all that kind of stuff. Like, okay. And I had a sample test, and I was like, oh my gosh, I spent 3 weeks studying. And then I came to take the test, and I said, I said, okay, this is it.
Make or break.
Make or break. This is it. And I got a P for pass. I said, I don't care what I got. That's just like it's a P for pass. So, and I was elated. There I was able to start. And then I realized I had all that finally in hand. And I was so grateful that all these wonderful things were happening. I forgot to ask what my salary was. I didn't even know what it was till the first day I started work.
It didn't really matter, though.
No, I was just like, wait, what? Really?
And get a paid job?
And the fact that this is what kills me. The fact that I was a woman didn't play into it. It didn't matter. Wait, what? I just left some place that told me because I was a woman I had to leave. And it's okay that I'm not a man. I can still do this job. And if you look about that, it's so funny that I was the band director and Fred was the choral director.
Yeah, that's usually a flip statement.
Could have been the opposite way very, very easily, and it wasn't. And I just thank God that for what I had to go through some fire, but then that kept the passion. Also, it told my girls, my daughters, you are as worthy as anybody else, even if you are a female.
Great examples to be able to have there. I mean, amazing.
It's important. There's no sense in telling people that they can't do something because
ethnicity,
just because
gender,
they're female.
something.
That's not right. That's just not right. If they can do it, they ought to be able to try.
We're going to take a pause here in the conversation. It is wonderful to sit back and have these conversations with people. And when I'm doing this, sometimes it's good just to let the conversation flow, let it continue. And that's what I did with this one. So I'm splitting it up right here. So next week, if you want to be able to come back in and hear part 2 of it, it'll be available for you next Monday. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can email me at Cade, which is spelled Cade, at learningfromfriends.com. I am on Facebook. I am on Twitter. I have a Patreon page. All these can be looked up under as Learning from Friends. On the Patreon page, if you feel like donating, that would be phenomenal because it helps kind of pay a little bit of the coverage for buying new equipment and some software programs that I use. So every little bit helps there. So as we get ready to leave here, my name is Cade Curtis, your tour guide, and with my lovely, great catchphrase to leave us out today with, remember, don't forget, to let your curiosity fly high.